I call this Board of County Commissioners Budget Workshop to order. We have a quorum present. So we have all 5 commissioners, 4 here in studio and 1 online with Commissioner Shainfeld. Could you all rise, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to suspend Robert's rules.
I'd so move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Everybody loves the Robert's rules. Nobody wants to suspend them. Doc, you want to suspend Robert's rules? Could I get a second? Do you mind?
Oh, I didn't see anybody who was here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank
I
you.
didn't realize we were short
bit.
somebody in chambers. I was studying.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. We'll start off with Star Transits. Come on up, speak into the microphone so Commissioner Shainfeld and our friends online can hear you, and
Can you hear
introduce
me?
yourself and
Okay.
tell us what you're up to.
All right. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mary Seppi. I'm the director of Star Transit. So we are here to answer any of the questions you have on our budget requests this year. I'm glad we got to see you guys, and I'm glad you're entertaining talking to everybody this year, so much as none of us like to be in front of everyone. And I see I've got a couple of my board members online there, so great board.
Mary,
Yes.
pardon me, this is Commissioner Whitney. Would you introduce your board members, please, that are on?
Oh, yes. Online, I have Genie Demas and Les Malk.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
I have a great board, by the way. They're awesome.
Keeps getting better, doesn't it?
They are good board members, good staff. So I am just going to touch on our request a little bit, and then I will answer any questions that you have. So our request for this year is the 112,603. If you remember, in prior years, back into fiscal year 19, 20, we were at about 131,000. That's where our typical requests were. And then during COVID, for fiscal year 20, we reduced our request to 98,325. And then we kept that request down for 21 because we did get some CARES money, which helped us out with some of that match. And so now things are rolling back. Part of fiscal 22, we had a little bit of the CARES money left because of YDOT has a different fiscal year than us. So we have a couple months in there that we did still get those couple months of CARES money in our operating and our maintenance, not our administrative. So we did have a couple of months this year. So now things are starting next year. There's none of the CARES money, which I'm not going to lie, it was hard to budget with. It was hard to figure. It was hard to ask to know where we were going to come out, but that was true with all of COVID, just not knowing where we were going to all end up. So I have figured out our budget, figured out the match portions, basically back down into what we will need for match. The match that we asked for is for our 5311 funding, which is Federal Transit Administration funding. That provides the majority of our funding. So for just an example, all of our operating, which is our drivers and our dispatchers, our gas, that's all reimbursed by 5311 at 56%, 56.56 or something like that. And so that other portion is a part of what your money and the commission's money and the city and county will help fund for the matching so that we can actually apply for the grants. We do have an application in based on these numbers, but of course, if our matching doesn't come through or we have to adjust, then we'll do so. But and the maintenance and the administration, those are funded at 80% from FTA and 20% from other matching funds. We don't ask the commission, the cities or the counties for any of our equipment for our buses. Our buses, we do go to the federal government for, I believe it's section 5339 money. And anything we sell for the bus, that's what we use as part of the match and maybe a little bit of savings. And then typically our buses are funded through SLIB and through YDOT. And then we provide the other percent of the match. So we try not to come to you guys for any of our equipment type of things, any type of computers or anything like that. So this is basically just our operating, our admin, and our maintenance. And like I said, I have calced out everything that we would need and figured out the match on all those things. And that's where I have come up with the different categories of what we would need for match. And we also put in, I know we had a little bit of extra last year. And so we have put in 40,000, if you noticed on the budget, of our own money this year to kind of help offset some of this. And plus we want to get back to where we were, everything back to normal. And so we did actually put 40,000 of our own this year into it, trying to reduce anything that you were concerned with as far as any reserves. Some of the reserves that we have are for hopefully a building in the future. That is our goal. Right now, I don't think is a good time to do that because of some other costs that are associated with the building, but we're not in a county building or anything like that. So all of that and our other funding, we don't have a lot of county-based things except for this is our big thing. And this is to help our ridership so our seniors can ride free. And also so that, of course, we can just apply for those federal grants, which are the majority of our funding. So if you have questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll start with, is it one-to-one matching for that 5311? What do you need? Is it 50% match or?
Oh, it just depends on the category that it's in. And so if it's, like I said, if it's gas or our driver salaries or our dispatcher salaries, then we have to come up with like 40, whatever the difference is of 56, 43.44, 44.43, I don't remember.
Okay.
But it's not as much as like our maintenance is we only have to come up with 20%, and same with our admin. But our biggest cost, which is our driver salaries, of course, everybody's their salaries, our dispatcher salaries and our gas, which is going crazy right now too. Those things are all what we have the lower, it's not as much of a match. I mean, it's a higher match on those. So that's why we're
Not even one-to-one though.
No.
So,
no.
and then I see your employees full-time have gone down from 5 to 3, part-time from 10 to 6.
Yes,
Are we having, are fewer people utilizing?
Well, what
SWAT, or-
happened is we used to have more full-time employees, and then as things have progressed, we let some drivers not be full-time. We tried to make it all work part-time, and then we've had some people leave. Judy left, and we've had some dispatchers leave. Most of the time, those go back into full-time, but what happened was a long time ago, we had a lot more full-time people. And then as things progress, we just tried to make it work with part-time people, which now is becoming an issue because we only have so many part-time people and we're pushing all those hours up. And as we know, all of us play with the 30 hours, and that's what we're doing right now. And so unfortunately, it's been tough to find drivers. So that's the other thing you're seeing in there is I did put in, we did have one full-time position last year. I held off on filling that initially because I wasn't sure we were going to be looking at after COVID if we would need it. But I am considering just going ahead with that full-time position and then one additional full-time driver, and hoping we can get enough coverage with that. It is expensive, but it's also trying to find drivers. Like I was telling Roy, our last application process, we did not have one application because they're required to have a CDL, which is they've just changed all the CDL rules, and now it's expensive to send. You have to send them to like an 8-week training. And so even if I could train them, I don't think that they're going to stay. They're going to get that training and they're going to move on.
Sure.
So
How's
so
ridership?
what's that? Ridership is good. Again, I was talking to Roy before the meeting, and or I guess I was talking to Gary when he was in here, and it's done really well. We dropped our route off just because we couldn't staff it.
Yeah.
And with COVID, we were having issues with, I don't know, contact tracing type of things. And so it was hard to run that fixed route in Rock Springs. And so we're doing all door-to-door service now. So they call in, they go to your door, they take you where you need to go. For the seniors, it's free. For everybody else, it's $2. If they decide in Rock Springs that they want to go to a stop, it's $1. Just because we felt like that was only fair because we were taking out the route service to keep the fare structure somewhat fair. So it's a good service. We even do some same day service now if the availability, if we have driver availability, so they could call same day, get the ride home and stuff. So it's a different way of doing things, but I think in our community it fits well because a lot of people didn't like that time constraint on that route.
Sure.
But ridership is going up. Our constraint right now is drivers. So I think if we had more drivers, we could easily do more rides. So.
Well, we appreciate you at Deer Trail. We have get utilized often, I think, from our residents.
Oh, that's
Questions?
the goal.
Questions for Mary?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, Mary, I know for a while there, you were stuck with some federal regulations regarding COVID issues on the buses, such as number of people on the buses, masks on the bus. What kind of those restrictions are you still facing, if any?
Actually, as of 2 weeks ago, we were able to drop the mask requirement, which was nice because I do believe, don't get me wrong, I believe in masks. I was big, and I was actually glad when they put the mandate down because we had a lot of people, there was a lot of conflict about it. And so we had some people saying, yes, we're going to do it. And no, I'm not going to do it. So once that came down, it did make it a lot easier on our side from the federal standpoint. But right now, we're just basically keeping up our cleaning and things like that. So there's no actual federal requirements now for us to be following. I mean, they encourage us, of course, to still distance as much as possible, but there's no requirement right now.
And then Mary, what has been the public response to the change in the model? Have people been favorable to it? Do they miss the old system? I'm sure it's a mixed bag, but I was your liaison when you were looking at those changes. So I'm interested to see what the feedback has been.
I think for the most part, people like it. I will say that the younger riders liked our fixed route. They liked it. Because they could jump on anytime, and then do it. And they're a lot more flexible. The older people do like being able to have a time and the bus comes there, they put them on the bus, they take them directly. We like to be able to track it a little bit more as far as where people are going and things like that, because we've had the situation where people have ridden the route before and they get off and then somebody calls us, either a guardian or somebody, if you're dealing with someone who's having some memory issues, they got on the bus, they got off the bus. Well, we don't know where they got off. We don't track that because it's a fixed route. So they just get on and off. And so they're like, where's my dad? Well, I don't know where he got off. So this kind of keeps that issue down a little bit. I think the feedback's been good. We have some kinks we're still working out in the software, but I think overall, because it was such a big change, that I think it has gone well. And the software company's been amazing that we're working with. So.
Well, you just need to borrow a page from Lyft or Uber,
I'm telling you, right? Well, believe me, I have people call me and say, well, why don't you coordinate with Lyft and Uber? I said, well, have you been here? There might be one or two Uber drivers, but not too many.
Other questions?
How many buses do you have?
We have 10 buses in our fleet and we have 2 small vans. The buses, we have a few that are somewhat new. They're all 18 passenger buses, except for one, which is a 14 passenger bus, which is why we have to have that CDL. We are wanting to move towards 14 passenger buses, but unfortunately we have 2 back years of grants that are waiting, that have been earmarked, but they're telling us like 2 years for a build out, and maybe that'll get better. So it was just the perfect storm, I think, just like with everyone with COVID, and we were ready to move on to these 14 passenger buses because that will help us with not having to have that CDL requirement. And I also feel like they'll be a little bit more fuel efficient, things like that. But for now, we're basically stuck with what we have.
Other questions?
Mary,
Yes.
thank you for being here and that, who does your repairs mainly for you? Or is it mainly warranty work?
No, it's we contract with the city of Rock Springs actually
Okay.
does our
Good.
maintenance, but we pay them directly. I mean, it's just, I think it was basically when all of that was worked out, we used to go to K-Motive, and when K-Motive quit, there just wasn't anyone who could service our lifts and things like that. And so the city stepped in and said, hey, we have some time, our guys have time, and we would rather them be busy and you pay us. And so we just pay them like a vendor. So, and they're amazing to work with. They've been a really good place.
Thank you. I hadn't heard quite for sure who was helping out after K-Motive stopped, but we got to reach out and thank Rock Springs City for stepping up and helping you guys out. And of course, you're tax exempt. Are you?
Yes.
You got, okay,
Yes.
so you don't, the not paying taxes on fuel on that should help a little bit.
It helps a little bit, right? But it is, yeah, you will, like I said, I was pretty excited when we first put the budget in because we're running door to door. So you're not running that route around all the time. And so the gas, I was hoping would be down, but now that I'm seeing the gas bills, it doesn't seem that different, but it still is different. It's still
Sure.
less, you know, so it's nice that we're sending a bus when there is a bus needed and not just a bus running constantly to, and wear and tear on the bus too. Yeah. So
Thank you, Mary.
you bet.
Commissioner Shanefield, I love the nail polish. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I hate that you can see my hands though. It's weird that I'm typing and you can see them.
No,
But
the
yes,
nails look great.
Thank you
So
for being
nice.
here, Mary. I appreciate the work that you guys do and always making it work and figuring out a way to make it good for the citizens of our communities.
Well, I appreciate that. I know that there are a lot of people out there that either utilize a wheelchair or, you know, they just have lost the license or they don't have family and things like that. And I think until you've needed the service, you don't realize what an asset the service is. And so there are a lot of people out there that are like, well, I don't even know what STAR is. But when they've needed the service and they call in, they're like, wow, you guys, that's a pretty cool service. Yeah, it is. But a lot of times you don't recognize that till you need the service. But I think that for our seniors and things like that, it's invaluable, not only for the time that they are on the bus just to take them somewhere. For a lot of them, it's their social time. Like they couldn't get out otherwise and socialize sometimes with some of their friends, as you probably know how things are with sometimes with trying to get people out and things like that. So, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions. And
I think we're in good shape.
okay,
Thank you for your time. We sure appreciate it. and
Okay.
Thanks for your, a couple of your board members as well being on there.
Chairman?
Appreciate it. Yes.
I'd like to know if the board members have anything they'd like to add.
I don't have anything.
Thank you, Jeannie.
No, I don't have anything. Directors covered it well.
Thanks, Les.
thank you guys for being here, for your
Thank you.
support. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So,
Appreciate your time.
all right. Well, thank you guys. If you have any other questions that you think of, feel free to email me or reach out. I'll be happy to answer them.
We'll track you down for sure.
I know you will.
Thank you.
All
Mary.
right. Thank you, guys.
And we are on to us, Board of County Commissioners. Let's see here.
Well, we had to ask for, Mr. Chairman, we had to ask for a $20,000 budget amendment. And that was with pretty much minimal travel. We only went to one conference in state.
True. Let's see, any comments about this, our total
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
budget? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question. What is Commissioner Other?
Commissioner Other. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, just because it is taking an 89.12% cut, and I kind of feel it's probably the miscellaneous throw all of what doesn't fit anything else in category. But I just wondering what it was exactly.
I'm not sure I can answer that. Well, actually, I'm sure I cannot answer that.
It's definitely not frills because we don't get any t-shirts or hats or.
Commissioner Lloyd.
Yes.
The others includes, like there's any engraving for the plate set in front of us that goes through Mike's trophies.
Okay.
You've also got, if there's any flags that need to be bought, there's postage and mailers, postcards, advertising, which was through WIO Radio. Your postage runs about $4,400. Your postcards are about $25. Then, of course, you had Christmas cards in there. and that type of thing. So that's what the others are. So
Okay, thank you.
it's not too many. Then also we have the for the legislative dinner where we split with the other counties that came out of there.
Hmm.
So does that help you out?
That does, because that was kind of what I was thinking on Commissioner
Alan.
Wendling and some of those topics. I didn't realize postage, but I figured
Yeah.
some of the other stuff. And to me, that seems like that is going to have to slightly come up from $1,000 because we can't even cover postage.
No, and that type of thing. So.
So
Any other questions?
overall, our budget is down 4.65%, $20,690 compared to our 21-22 request.
Well, I'd like
How do we
to,
feel about that?
well, before we, I'll wait and then I'll go over the entire budget.
Why wait? Go
You
ahead.
asked the question, so let's get your question.
Oh, I didn't
answered.
ask a question. I just said, how do you feel about that? So, yeah, I did ask a question. You're right. Go ahead, Commissioner Whitley.
All right, I'll just go through it all. Start from the beginning, just, and ask any questions if you'd like.
Thank you.
First of all, of course, we've got salaries and wages and that type of thing. I know Commissioner Lloyd, you've commented on salaries for commissioners. We set that through a referendum or through a resolution when we set the other elected officials. So that'll occur here shortly and that type of thing. And of course, I don't know if we'd have the option. The state statute says 10,000 as a minimum. Right now it's up to 145 for maximum for elected officials, which we're dealing with. I believe it's on the agenda tomorrow, but if you want to take the commissioners down $10,000 a piece, now would be the time to do that. Also, you have employees fringe, which is our commissioners' benefits, taxable fringe, and then you also have the employee benefit insurance. That, will all go up based on the cost of insurance as it has gone up. And then you have the retirement, which will go up because as your salaries, well, maybe not for us, but it may for the other electeds could go down if you change your mind. Then, of course, payroll taxes, that won't change much. So you should be in pretty good shape there. Going on, if you want any dollar figures, just ask me and I'll give them to you. All right, now we get in, and that's basically what comes out of HR, what I've gone over so far. This is what basically we have a little more control over, repairs and maintenance. And the biggest share of that, $1,900 we had this year is approximately $1,140 for a copier contract. So we still have available in our budget $763 for that. And then next is repairs and maintenance, which that was, okay. Insurance, which is commissioner's insurance, which is $700 a year, and that's still sitting in there. Not sure where it'll come out or when. Next thing you have telephone communications, which is $5,200, and there's still $1,800 in there. So 65% has been spent. Let's see, this is still telephones, so we're still there. Advertising for commissioners. I think Commissioner Toman, this will address what you talked about. We had a $20,000 increase, which was a budget amendment, and that was for the this is for the specific tax, which is a survey. That was 20,000, but we also had, I don't know if, Sally, do you know if we had did a budget amendment for when we ran the special election last November? Did that come out of the clerk's office, do you know?
Yes, it did come out of the clerk's office.
It did,
Commissioner
okay.
Wendling.
So we could end up doing a budget amendment for her yet at the end of the year to cover that. So that's there. So total advertising is 21,000. We left 1,000 in there now. Will there be another survey commissioner? I don't know. And then you've got others, which we just talked about, $1,500 and we spent, we're over by $9,500. But you can see why that's in there. Oh, here we go. This is it. The specific purpose tax services through TurnCore is in there for another $8,750. So that's brought that, if you take that 8,075 from the 94, we're really only $700 over there, Mary, to help out a little bit. Then, of course, we hit our big one, which is, well, not the big one. We hit the one that's got, we only put $3,500 in travel. And I think we can all agree that's been beaten up pretty bad to the extent that it's has an overage there as well. Also, education and training, which is some of our fees for the Waco registration that we probably got back. I think that was for that we got that back refund, and then also another refund for that conference credit. That's what it was, $520. So we're still at 100% of that $500, so or $1,000 that was revised. Office supplies at $700. There's still $315 there. And then dues and subscriptions has 65,000 in it, and there's still 4,000 in it. It's 93% spent. And those dues are Wyoming Commissioner dues of 27,600, Coalition Local Governments 35,000. You have Waco $325. We got Western States of 5,000, and then we have Wyoming County Commissioners registration, another 400 that was taken out of there. And then we have small tools and stuff, which is in the hole about $550, and that's wireless broadband and phones and stuff that have been bought later. And then, of course, any of our equipment, which that's where anything over $1,500 came out of capital. So I agree, we need to adjust it. I would like to see us be able to, we'll have to do a better job talking. I don't know what, well, I think Lauren will have some input as to what we'll have coming up for specific purpose starting after the July 1 through, I'll just say this next fiscal year. So outside of that one, not knowing, the other thing, I think I agree. I think we need to, let me say this first. I think we need to find a way to not only improve some opportunities for expenditures for us, but also to reduce our budget and put some money back in to the general fund. And I do have a suggestion for that if you want to hear it.
I do.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to? You're going to hear it anyhow.
I want to hear.
You hear it anyhow. Right now, I would suggest that in our dues and subscriptions that we authorize we can't do it here because it's a workshop, but we could have it ready for tomorrow. But we authorize a letter to CLG that we withdraw our membership with them. That will give us $35,000. If we notify also Conservation District that we know that we give them $10,000 out of our general fund. Well, they're funded entirely out of our general fund. So we could notify them that that money will no longer be available. But out of that $35,000, I would say we use it and raise our traveling to $15,000. And then we give $5,000 to the Western States and take the other $15,000 and give it back to the general fund or put it in those other areas. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, run me through that again. Drop out of CLG and out of Conservation District.
No, well, we just know,
No,
we
don't fund them.
can't tell Conservation District how to spend their dollars, but the one thing we can do is highly encourage, because outside of any grant money they get, we fund them 100%. So that 10,000 for CLG of their dues in actuality, when you think is part of their budget, comes from our general fund that we give them in their regular budget.
Okay, and then we go up 7,000 on travel.
Yep.
And
Make sure it's 15,000. Because you're going to also have in July, you're going to have NACO in Denver
Mhm.
for us as commissioners. But I think that's a way to not only stay in line of, we've done a lot for all our, well, not all of them, but we've done a lot for our employees. But I think could give us an opportunity to take the lead. I think if it were legally possible, if Commissioner Lloyd wanted to lower commissioner salaries down to 10,000 a year with the fact of the fringe benefit packages that they still get health insurance and that type of thing, that will give you another 100 grand to put back in the general fund or use towards core county. So thank you.
Not quite finished with questions. And so
Go ahead,
7,000
finish.
back to travel, and then roll me through the rest there.
All right.
7,000 back into travel.
7,000, so it
I'm a
comes up
slow
to
writer.
15, 5,000 into Western states.
Oh, that's right.
So that's 20, if I'm not mistaken. And the other 15 back into the general fund or use it for a specific purpose wherever Lauren thinks it needs to be within our budget.
Okay. So this is on top of, currently we have a reduction in our budget request of $20,690, which obviously we'd go back into the general fund. And so this is, you're asking for this on, or proposing this on top of that budget request that's already submitted. Is that true?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Commissioner Wendling?
Oh, I'm just,
Other
a little-
questions?
I'm a little bit shocked because it's not going to be a true savings if you don't pay into CLG. They are now fully engaged with FNRPA and the governor's office in getting the money. They owe Connie Brooks 90,000, which we would have to pay a share of to bow out of that organization. So
Wow.
that alone would cost us 20 some thousand. So we really wouldn't be saving. And right now, this next year is crucial that we have legal counsel. And I think after talking with Air Mosby and De Leon, they're not ready to step up to the plate and write those legal comments. The Rock Springs BLM RMP is going to come out anytime.
Okay, I'll wait till you're done.
We have all of the federal things that are affecting Sweetwater County. We're going to come to a head this year. We've got the Ashley National Forest that needs legal comments for us. We have the Flaming Gorge National Recreation Area. And I feel like the CLG, the Coalition of Local Governments, is kind of balanced out now that we are getting the FNRPA money from the governor. That's about a $300,000 budget a year, with 100 some coming from the governor and the other coming from the dues of the members. So I don't think it would be wise to bow out now unless you're prepared to pay $250 an hour to have legal, somebody from some kind of legal outside entity. I don't think Mr. De Leon's ready to write federal comments. I don't. That was my understanding last year, that him and Mr. Air Mosby were not ready to engage in that federal commenting process. And the county is at a crucial point right now when they're making those final decisions. If we bow out now and just let it go, we've lost our voice.
Point, counterpoint, please, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. First of all, this commission or the previous commission did not commit to picking up any of the money for Rocky Mountain that was owed Connie Brooks. It's never been brought before this commission, put in their budget, or requested over the 7-8 years that I've been a commissioner since that's occurred. So that's not this board's responsibility.
It directly impacted our county and
Well,
those coal mines.
I'm
So
not
I don't want to argue it.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I was rudely interrupted.
You've got the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. Remind my fellow commissioner. Thank
We'll
you.
let Commissioner Wendling finish.
So with that, you take that, I don't feel there's a need to spend it. Then also, we have seen twice now where 2 counties have dropped out of the CLG, which means now the CLG is only 2 counties and 5 conservation districts. We're not even sure whether all of the conservation districts are going to get their money possibly from their counties, because some of them are funded by the counties, similar to ours is, which in turn means with all the attorney work that's coming up that Commissioner Tolman is talking about, the burden of expense is going to be coming on this county and you went to, and I don't feel that at a time like this, that should be our responsibility. I agree, there may be comments written, but first of all, $250 an hour versus 45,000 for CLG this next year, plus another 40 to finish paying off. That's $85,000. I'm thinking we get a lot of service for $85,000. Besides that, we've got people that know about this stuff. So I not saying Commissioner Tolman's wrong. I'm just saying here's another side of the coin. And I would like to see it brought forward that we, there's no reason we should, as Sweetwater County, carry the burden for CLG when the other two counties, Sublet and Lincoln, have dropped membership. In fact, this last year, both of those counties, I believe, one for sure, UNA, has said that, yes, they'll pay their dues for this year presently, but that money has to go to Connie Brooks. So they didn't even pay in any money to CLG for the work to pay the attorney. So in reality, there's only two counties paying for it right now. And I think it's time to rethink it. It's time to move forward. It's time to maybe find a different model, but I'm sorry. It is time, in my belief, and I'll bring the letter tomorrow to our regular meeting and ask this commission to vote on it, if that's what we have here tonight as a group, as a consensus to bring it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lloyd.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on this real quick. This is actually something I had some conversations with a little bit with Mary and Commissioner Wendling 6 to 8 months ago when we started seeing the other counties come out of CLG. And one of the things when Commissioner Wendling was chair was we talked about eventually getting to this point of having this discussion, because my concern was exactly what Commissioner Wendling said was the burden was coming onto us. We're seeing these other organizations. And one of the things I think that Commissioner Wendling said that I like is I like the idea of maybe a workshop to have a better discussion for us that haven't been involved in CLG. But is it the time to reimagine and rethink it? Do we get with the other counties and come up with our own coalition with our own calls? Was that even needed? But I would worry at this point if CLG is the direction to go based upon the fact that I do think we will be carrying the financial burden. And I wonder if there's a different archetype we could take to go and a paradigm to take a look at that. So I would be in favor of taking a look at that opportunity. In fact, that was one of the things I was going to bring up today was CLG. And just because of the state and change that we've seen in it over the last couple of years. The other thing I want to bring up is something that Commissioner Wendling had said is salaries. Last year I brought to this commission, I wondered about a 25% cut in our salary, which was about 9,000, which takes us down to 26. And the reason I put that out there last year was we were asking every department to take significant cuts. And Commissioner Wendling put it well that we not only get a good salary, but we also, our perks and benefits are well dollared. And so that was one of the reasons I wanted to take a look at it this year. Last year, I continue to say we should continue to look at that 25% cut as a possibility if the commission as a whole wants to go that way, based upon the fact of taking the lead in the budget. Because yes, we are going to see more money this year, but we've also committed to invest into our employees, not only with the 6% COLA, but we've all had discussions about the importance of training and working within those people that we have. So I think some of those financial commitments take us to take a lead. So that's why I made that comment. Two different reasons. Last year was more because we were asking everyone to take significant cuts. And honestly, at the end of the day, the way we end up doing budget last year, I really do think our county, even though some of the agents, like STAR took a significant cut, but really at the end of the day, a lot of our internal agencies and departments and elected officials really carried the brunt of those cuts. So that's why I continue to say we look at that. And the other thing is I do agree looking at travel and meals and maybe coming up with some ways to put some controls to it. So we all kind of have ideas where folks are going and making sure that's effective in the use. And I do think we'd also have to look at raising other And I think that was part of Commissioner Welding's piece, because at $1,000, it doesn't even cover postage. And I think we need to be effectively, we don't want to cut and not have to come back for a budget amendment. We want to be able to make sure we're making effective decisions up front. And I think the CLG decision could really be a great loss leader in walking that way. So those were my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Shanefield, any comments?
I want to echo on what Commissioner Lloyd and Commissioner Windling have said on CLG. It is next on my list of things to really look at and see if it is effective. I feel like we're spending a lot of money there. And I don't know if we're getting, I think we can get what we're getting now for a better dollar. And also have a better understanding and maybe a little bit more say in what, what our comments are being and, what's coming from the county as well. And so I agree that we definitely need to take a look at that. I'm happy to do so immediately. And I would love to have a little bit more detail about what CLG is doing. And then I'd like to have a little bit of time to think about that before we go through the end of the budget process. I think that's everything that I have comments on, in addition to, some of the other things that have been said that I don't think I need to repeat. So I'm good for right now.
Thank you. Either Commissioner Wendling or anybody, I guess. What is our obligation there contract-wise with CLG? Are we tied into our budget year? Is that how the dues work?
We'd have to let them, the bylaw change, we'd have to let them know by the first part of May if we were going to bow out. I just can't stress enough, though, the value. The others have gotten what they needed. That's why they're so willing to bow out. And there was some turmoil because we were having difficulty receiving the governor's, the legislative FNRPA money. But that has been resolved, and we are receiving the FNRPA money, which is about half of that budget. And the weight of the comments are Sweetwater County has the most to lose by leaving CLG right now. The rest of them could leave because they've gotten Pinedale RMP is done, Rollins RMP is done, Kimmer RMP is done, the resource management plans through the BLM. The Rock Springs one is not done, and there's going to be a major shift in the tone of those comments. They're going to go from being an energy and a resource type of a plan to be more of a conservation plan, which will affect our 60 to 70% of our income is coming from those federal lands. And I just feel that this is not the time to bow out of it. I mean, we could individually maybe hire, I don't know if we could hire the CLG lawyer, but if you look at $250 an hour minimum, 100 hours is $25,000. So you need to put some legal money in there if you don't want to pay CLG dues. I feel that CLG is able to leverage and double their benefits now through the dues because of FNRPA. We can also write FNRPA grants, but we don't have a MARC-COT or natural resource plan, and I don't think we can put another job on Eric's plate. So we would have to go for FNRPA money to try to help pay our legal bill, because I don't think we can sit back and let all of those plans come to fruition and not participate in commenting on them. And I am not qualified to give the legal comments, even though I've been involved for 20, 30 years. I just can't stress enough how important it is. And I think Commissioner Wendling does too. So it doesn't matter to me if you do it through CLG or you hire your own lawyer and have an item for legal in there. It's just that you've got to cover your bases and be able to defend your resources in this county. And that's the only way you can do it, is have scientifically credible, legally defensible comments. You can't just have any guy off the street defend the county. So I can't stress it enough. It's key. There are so many of them, and it's not just the big plans. We are the big ones. It's the Ashley that affects Wyoming. The Flaming Gorge will come out this year, and the Rock Springs BLM RMP that resource management plan. But we are also involved in the Pacific Trona. We comment on those all federal projects and plans, and there are like 20 some of them going on right now. The transmission corridors, the pipelines. that coalition, and I have been bringing all those comments through the commission to ratify them, because in the past you have not been privy maybe to all the comments that were made, but it is important that you understand those. And if we need to have Connie Brooks, we're getting our finalized plan through the P&Z. We're in our public comment period right now to help us state our position on these natural resource issues.
Thank you. Commissioner Shanefield?
Thank you. I just had a question because I wanted to clarify. The Rock Springs RMP has been outstanding for 12 years. Is that right?
Oh, it's been through
Yes.
various iterations. It's had 8 briefings. It's had 8 federal briefings. But the sad part is that it will come out probably this year. It's in its final briefing with the new administration's people in Washington, D.C. and the BLM and the Department of the Interior. So it will come out. They are not, I have been in meetings for, yeah, I agree with you. 12, we've had like 3 iterations of it. The scary part is now, because of the emphasis from this administration, they didn't make us come back into those cooperator pre-decisional meetings and sit through another 100 and some hours, because they have 5 alternatives. And so what's going to happen now is the alternatives, which were going to be focused on resource friendly, will now shift to be conservation friendly, which will be a lot of special use areas, which will limit mining, oil and gas development, all of those things will slide more to the resource type of alternative. So that's the importance of being able to testify or even appeal that plan when it comes out, because if you don't, then you are forever blocked from those opportunities.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a follow-up question to that as well. So if the Rock Springs RMP has been outstanding for 12 years, how long have we been a part of CLG and paying the same dues that these other communities have been paying, and they're completed? So if we still stand the biggest to lose and our items are not completed, then that leads me to believe that we owe some due diligence in checking out, maybe what some other options are. Maybe this is the best option, but I think that we owe the time and the energy in looking at this and seeing if it's the best use of our money, and seeing, maybe where we can get a bigger bang for our buck and get some things completed for our community, because it's been a long time and we haven't seen the results.
Thank you. It has been a long time. I know how long ago was I in DC? 2-3 years ago, I guess. And talking about payment in lieu of taxes money and trying to get it pushed through, and even asked Secretary Burkhart, and he said, it's going to be done. It's going to be done. That was,
It
2.5 years ago.
It all seems to swing whichever administration comes in.
And Rock Springs management plan
sadly-
is not high on their list, apparently.
Well, ours got hung out because it was the last one. The others did get completed during that time.
Mhm.
And we helped fund all of those. It's
We
been,
did,
the
yeah.
CLG has been going for like 18, 19 years, but it doesn't mean that nothing happened. I can bring in that flow chart that shows you all of the active plans that have been completed, all the projects, the NPL, the normally pressurized lands project, that was in court for 3 years, but we were heavily involved in that. It's in Sublette County, but the oil field and gas field providers come out of Sweetwater County. NPL just came out of a lawsuit, is ready to start drilling now, 3,500 wells. So that will directly impact our county and positively affect our tax base. So it doesn't matter to me if you do it through CLG or you privately, but there are very few lawyers in the country that I would feel confident that could deal with these kind of federal issues that have been tied to them for this many years, that understand how they affect a county's tax base. And that is what we have been defending all of these years. Why did we form a coalition? When Commissioner Oldfield was a commissioner here, Sweetwater County Conservation District, I was chairman at that time in Oldfield, we invited the other counties to a meeting in Little America. That's when this coalition was formed. Jack Morrow Hills was starting up at that time, and some of the other resource plans were starting into play. So we knew that we could not defend ourselves against $5 and $10 million private contractors who were working for the federal agencies. We could not afford to pay lawyers individually, so we had to leverage through dues to be able to get governor, the legislature appropriates that federal natural resource FNRPA money through grants each year. Through that grants, we've been able to run a $300,000 budget, and about half of that has come from the legislature's money that was appropriated to help counties defend what they're doing with their federal plans. But then the other leveraging came from our own dues, which were from the conservation districts and the county commissions. We have the most to lose. We are at play on the end of this. And I still think we can leverage our money better by staying in CLG at this point until we get through these plans.
Thank you. Good discussion on that. Other comments about our budget overall, I think?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Wendling.
I'd like to see it put on the second meeting in May, the agenda. And just put another topic to notify CLG of withdrawing membership, and then we can vote it up or down.
We can do that. So 2 weeks.
That'll give Commissioner Tolman some time to find out what questions the others have, and maybe we can have a transparent conversation.
Well, I think we just need to have an alternative. We don't want to do CLG. How do we want to defend ourselves? That's all. I mean, I'll be having a discussion with Mr. De Leon and Mr. Aramosby. What are they going to recommend? You know, I know they have to hire outside lawyers when they go to trial for certain situations. So I think we can't just stand here and say we don't want to have any alternative as to how we are going to defend ourselves against those plans.
Like I said, second meeting in May, please, Commissioner.
Can do May 16th, CLG. We'll put that on the agenda.
Because it does impact our budget. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one other comment. I believe if you change your salary schedule, I'm not opposed to reducing it, but I think this happened in the past. You end up, this current commission cannot automatically shift their salary. If we give ourselves a raise or a reduction, it doesn't take effect till the new commissioners come on board in January. So in the past, you've had one set of commissioners getting one salary and another set of commissioners who came in getting another salary. It was a split salary with the commissioners.
Are we not?
There's no other way to
It has to
do
be
it.
set with, I think it's set with the other, we can set it at the same time as we set the other positions.
No, I believe by state law, Mr. De Leon could check that out. By state law, if you vote yourself a different salary as a commission, it doesn't take effect until the next year. And the
You're
next set of commissioners come on
You're
board.
exactly right. You and the three of us that are
Right.
up this,
We
that
would
would take
stay.
impact on January 1 of next 23. And then the two commissioners that come up in 2 years, it would take impact on January 1 of 25. But you hit a key point. It's like any other public employee's salary. Can we reduce? That's a legal question.
Oh, I think we can.
I think so too, but I think we need to make sure.
What the process would be.
Yeah, I agree. But, and it's got to be established because by resolution, do we have to establish it by July 1st?
Yeah.
When we
June
set our
1st.
budgets for the other elected officials? Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Any other comments about our? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, John. Didn't see you.
Yeah, that is correct, Commissioner Wendling. You, the same way the increase wouldn't take effect until later, a decrease also wouldn't take effect until later. And as far as a reduction, yes, it could be made. And yes, it would have to be at the same time. And it would be by resolution for the commissioners.
What do you mean at the same time? When you say the same time, but like when your term is up?
Yeah, no, I
When a new-
apologize.
Go ahead.
So the June 1st timeframe is applicable to the commissioners as well.
To our,
So the salaries for the elected have to be established.
oh,
by
established,
June
but they don't
1st.
take effect.
June
Okay.
1st or July 1st?
I believe it's June.
We have to decide June
1st. Yeah.
1st. Yes.
Okay, all right. Might need to know that for tomorrow. If you haven't already looked for it.
June 1st.
June 1st,
That
okay.
is correct.
Good.
Commissioner Wendling,
Yes.
you weren't here the last meeting. That's how I somehow got stuck with the duty of making the recommendations for those salaries and for the other offices.
He did.
So-
Yeah.
Oh. But,
Just asking for work. That's good.
all right, finish it up tomorrow.
Any other questions, comments about our budget? Okay, I mean, I appreciate the desire to take the lead and to push forward. And our budget obviously isn't, it's kind of a shadow of many other budgets,
Yep.
but it's also larger than many other budgets that we have as well. So I think it's very, very true that we should do what we can to be responsible in our department as well. Take care of our house first before we ask others to do the same. So,
Being chairman doesn't exonerate you from giving your opinion.
it doesn't. I'm going to wait for tomorrow's discussion.
No, I'm not talking about elected official salary. I'm talking about the commissioner's budget.
Oh, commissioner's budget. Well, no, I think I'm in agreement. I think going last, yeah, a lot has already been said, and I agree with most all the comments. I think with CLG, I haven't been that involved with it, and so I would love to see, hey, these are the accomplishments, and not just what have we done, but what have we accomplished. So not just we've written comments for all of these things, but did that make a difference, or what things have happened with CLG
Mr.
that
Chairman,
benefited us?
I do have a report that lists all of those. We had it last year. We had it
Great.
prepared. Yeah, so I'll get that to you.
That would be great to
But
see.
I would welcome any of the commissioners to contact me, because it has been a 20-year battle, almost 20-year battle of trying to leverage through dues rather than have to individually hire 150,000 to 300,000 to defend any one of those plans is what we have spent through the coalition.
And my other comment would be, I guess regarding salaries, is when I committed to run, when I declared and went to the clerk's office, I didn't even know that we got paid anything, to be perfectly honest. I thought every board I'd been on had been volunteer. And so I had no idea that there was actually a salary associated with this. Since then, my eyes have been opened at how much work this is and how many hours this is. And it is a lot, way more than I expected, to be perfect. And I thought it was going to be pretty substantial, but it's way more than I ever thought it was. I know what I make at my day job. I know what I do, and compared to the hours that I spend on being a commissioner, it is, you really have to want to serve your county to be doing this for the amount of salary that we get, to be perfectly honest. And so I'm not totally sure I'm on board with that. I can talk with me about it, and I'm open to listen to it for sure. But I feel like all of our time is valuable and worth something. And so we can have that discussion more tomorrow, but that's my stance on that. Otherwise, as far as I'm glad to see our initial budget, reduced by, looking at 5%. So that's a good start, especially in a year where we do expect more money coming in to see us go down. So that's great. Those would be my comments so far.
Good. I like it. Thanks.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Where's our agenda? Do we have anything else on the agenda? We don't. Items for the next meeting, I guess.
Mr. Chairman.
Something else?
Well, we've got Ms. Shoemaker. What's going on back there?
There is the review policy amendments.
Oh, true. I skipped right over that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. That was a half hour ago. Who's running this meeting? Okay. Policy amendments workshop. Here comes Mr. McLean. The floor is yours.
Did you solve all the budget problems of the world?
And the policy problems. It's amazing. Yeah. It's been a solid hour. We've done really well. Good work here.
So I guess just to try to get back in this a little bit, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, this was a large section, Chapter 3. There were quite a few issues that were discussed. There were some changes made specifically to the sections that had to do with breaks. I think we got a resolution on those. One of the pending items we didn't get some resolution on that we had feedback regarding was the issue about comp time leave for on-call situations. And so that seems like a good place to start. Once again, I think just to get us reoriented, the issue is not with compensatory leave in lieu of overtime. This is a question about comp time in situations where individuals are on call. And as we discussed, as the numbers in the departments, especially those departments that use compensatory time have gone down, the ability to afford more time off is difficult to maintain. So in trying to find some sort of resolution to this, I think the answer, and I think Commissioner Wendling actually suggested this, was in looking at the compensatory time rate. So I couldn't pin it down exactly, but it was around 2012 when that rate was set for compensatory time, which is 2 hours, $2 per hour of comp time. And I think a reasonable resolution to this issue would be to look at increasing that amount to $3 or $4. I think my recommendation would be 3, but and I think and still not allowing the use of comp time for on-call time, but rather increasing the rate, which has been at that $2 level for a long time. And so I think that's one of the major issues that we had some feedback, some employee feedback we discussed near the tail end of our last meeting. And I think we finally got the separated between compensatory time in lieu of overtime and comp time in this situation. So I think that was one of the major areas that we had to discuss. So I don't know if any of you have had any more feedback on that or have any feelings, but I think that's one that would be important in terms of moving forth with this section.
Questions for Mr. McLean? Comments?
Gary?
Yeah.
I know there's, is $3 a standard rate pretty well what you find out there? I mean, I know there's some places that pay for on standby and that type of thing.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a standard rate. I think probably the standard practice is to just be on call. You're not required to pay, and lots of places don't. But I think the issue when going back to when this was brought up to begin with was that you do have some restriction, right? So you can't go to parties. You have to be available to respond within 15 minutes or half hour, depending what department you're in. And so you have to be in the general neighborhood. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm not aware of really a standard. I say the standard probably is not to do it at all. It's probably the most common thing, but
We've been doing it for $2. Kind of hard to take it away.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What will the increase to $3, how will that impact county budget?
Yeah, it's a relatively small increase in that most of the areas, like, for example, don't accrue a whole lot of that. So and the areas that'll be impacted, a little bit in law enforcement in the jail, a little bit in road and bridge is probably the biggest area, a little bit in IT, and a little bit in building facilities maintenance. Those are the main areas where you have 24-hour accountability. So it's I don't have a firm dollar amount right now, but it's relatively small. Okay. That change. And I think somewhere in that range seems to make sense. I think that in reading and discussing this, both on the employee side and the manager side, is just that the employees felt as though the comp time when they use it, ends up being more advantageous than the pay, and I get that over time.
Yeah.
And so by increasing it, I think we could bring it closer together and not have the issue of so many people being gone, which is what we're trying to accomplish. So something in that range.
It'd be a 50% increase, so.
Yeah, it'd be significant from that standpoint.
I'd support a 3.
It sounds better when it's a 50% increase as
Yeah, it
opposed to
does.
$2 to $3, because 3 doesn't sound like a lot, but
Yeah.
50% increase sounds pretty good. Other questions or comments for Mr. McLean?
Yeah, what they still could take comp time as leave, as
Yeah,
instead
so
of taking the $3, they could say, I want to take,
no,
no, it
so-
would just be that.
that's right. But
Okay.
only for on-call. Again,
Yeah,
if somebody
okay.
works overtime, they can still, if the department head approves it, they can still accrue comp time in those departments, and they have to have a policy that,
They can take
we
days
approve,
off or
yeah,
something. Yeah, okay.
yeah, but this
All
would
right.
be only in the circumstance where they were on call. Yeah.
Other comments, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I did speak to Gene a little bit about this because this does affect his department, the largest. And like he explained to us at the last meeting and in an email to me in a discussion, is one of the problems was when they created the comp time is when we had 31 to 32 employees. And part of the problem now is that they have 22 to 23 employees. So when an employee asks for comp time, it has to be given legally at the time of request because it's like a financial payment. Am I correct, Mr. McLean?
So that's true in lieu of overtime. That's
Yeah.
not true in the case of comp,
Okay.
of on-call time, because that's not regulated
Yeah.
by the FLSA, but
So one of the things that occurs is if maybe someone asks for time off and they're unable to give it to for a multitude of reasons, number of people already off, and then they say, well, I'm going to use it as comp time. Then at that point, they have to provide it as comp time. And so due to that, it's become very difficult to for them to be able to provide the amount of comp time. And they do, I can't remember the total number of comp time these guys earn in a year, but it's significant when you add to their vacation time. And I think they can accrue up to 240 hours of comp time at one time. So
that's the legal limit. That doesn't include this. Now that's overtime comp time, but
Okay.
yeah.
So that's one of the reasons Gene wanted to look at maybe some options, is the difficulty in managing that situation.
But this won't change that at all.
It'll change it from the standpoint that they will not be accruing comp time in lieu of paying them for on call.
Yeah.
We would pay them on call, but increase the rate from $2 to $3.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the proposal anyway.
And Mr. Chairman, it would still be determined by the department head or the elected official. I mean, they can't just accumulate comp time on the overtime unless it's been pre-approved anyway, right?
Yeah, so once again, on FLSA overtime, we have to pay them by law. The FLSA makes you pay overtime. The employees can choose comp time if the department head's willing to offer it. And if they're willing to offer it, they have to have a policy, says how much they can accrue, when they can use it. I approve the policy once they get it done that meets all those criteria. And there are a few departments that do that. We're only talking here, though, again, about on-call comp, which is a relatively small amount. And the recommendation is just that it makes more sense, I think, from an operational standpoint, to pay it and look at the increase in the rate a little bit. It hasn't been touched for quite a while.
Sure. I like the $3. So.
Yep.
All right, next up.
I think just to recap a little bit, I think that everybody had a chance to read the amended language on the break issue. I feel like I just want to make sure that was probably the most feedback in terms of the interpretation of the language that was originally in there. And I think we modified that language, and I shared that with the folks that expressed concern. So I feel like, unless you've had any other feedback on it, that issue relative to breaks seems to be addressed.
Good. That was a lively one.
Yeah.
Well, basically, it's not going to change. Right?
Just clarifying the boundaries. Yeah.
Perfect.
So.
All righty.
Good. Any other comments, questions about that one? All right. Up next then.
I think the other significant section, which you'll see in here, was the section that addressed with travel reimbursement and meals and those things. And the main adding that in was to make sure that all, I don't know if adding it in, but clarifying it so that it's synchronized with the rules when you go to purchasing to check out a vehicle or make travel arrangements. And so we made sure that section is in agreement with all of the practices that we currently have relative to that. And so I think, that was an important update of that section also.
Questions there?
Yeah, so they are paid work time for traveling to and from instead of just one way, right? Was that the change on travel?
So that was one of the discussions that the point there is that it's considered work time anytime you travel during your normal business hours. Okay, so that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you would normally work, say 8 to 5, any travel between 8 and 5 is considered work time. Where it gets to be more problematic is if, say, your flight leaves at 8 o'clock and you're driving to Salt Lake to catch a flight, which is outside of your normal work hours. The FLSA rules only require the person driving to be paid as opposed to passengers. And so the discussion, which I think Dave brought up, was, well, everybody should be paid. And that's certainly okay with me, I guess. But the issue is that driving is considered work time if you're driving to go somewhere, as opposed to being a passenger. If people have to work, like for example, on a plane or train or bus, that's obviously work time. But if they are on public transportation, like a plane, that's not work time outside of normal business hours and would not be paid. So the reason he brings that up is periodically you'll have a carpool go to Cheyenne, and the travel mileage will be paid by the person who drove down. And I'm like, well, just split the drive up, then part of you drive, the other part drive. But my concern on that one is just simply that straying from the FLSA rules on this is kind of a never ending chase for where you're going to do it. Right now, the rules are fairly rigid and clear and not always maybe intuitive, but it's a slippery slope when you start getting outside of that. So it's a minor issue. I think at this point, most people understand it, and the truth of the matter is where we live, most of the travel, the vast majority of travel is within normal business hours because of flight schedules and travel time and stuff like that. So it's a relatively small event in my opinion.
Good. Any other questions, comments on travel?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Shanefield.
Yeah, I guess I feel pretty strongly that our employees, if they're out of the office and they're away from their families, whether they're driving or not, I believe that they should be paid for that. I know that I actually amended the same policy at the YWCA when I was there, because obviously, we want to make sure that we're giving them the benefit of the doubt. And there's oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes you're in a vehicle with your coworkers or, on public transport or whatever, that you are working and you're discussing work items, and you're not free to go do what you need to be doing outside of maybe personal phone calls or things like that. But I don't agree with that section of the policy.
Other comments?
But it is according to the Fair Labor Standards Board rules, right? The policy we have now.
Yeah, and that's and what Commissioner Shanefield is discussing is what the issue is generally been. It sounds like maybe they've went a little bit further than that, but the two questions that are implicit in that is, first, if you're traveling, the most common example is 4 people driving to Cheyenne. The driver of the car under the FLSA rules is technically working and would be compensated. The passengers would not. So that's one issue, is to say, are all 4 people, regardless of them, paid? And then, as Commissioner Shanefield, I think, said, is that if they're traveling, period, that they amended that to include that time, even if it were in an airplane or something else, which the FLSA said you're free to, do shopping, right? Personal stuff, sleep, do whatever. So that's not work time. But as you pointed out, some organizations have chosen to do that. So.
Mr. Chairman, I guess the question that I would have is what's right for the employees?
Mhm.
That's the big part about it.
Sure.
How do, I don't, I think part of this idea of making sure that we put our employees first because they're our number one resource. I think just that should help drive our decision-making with regard to that, not just because it's part of law or whatever it is. I don't always agree with just because it's stated in law, that doesn't mean it's right. It's doing the right thing versus things right. Sometimes taking care of employees is doing the right thing versus doing things right. So I think Commissioner Shanefield has a good point.
Commissioner Wendling, I'd also say, just like the previous discussion, as you probably know, we don't have this situation. It's not like every day.
Yeah,
Right? So
it's not very often.
It's here and there,
And
more times in certain times of the year. So
couldn't we qualify that for just in-state travel?
yeah, we can qualify to anything
No,
as long as we
out-of-state-
meet the law.
Yeah,
We can do it.
no, out-of-state travel.
Yeah, whatever you
I
guys
think
are
there comes a
comfortable
point in time, even, so much stuff is done with Zoom, and I don't think Zoom's going away or go to meetings and that
Yeah.
type of thing, but I still think there's purpose for in-face meetings. So I think a lot of our focus, especially in that arena, can be for, hey, in-state, leave it right there and take care of our employees.
Does that take care of our employees if it's just in-state? I mean, I'm trying to, what's the distinction if they're,
Oh, out of state, there's just time, that's all. That's all I'm saying.
so
They
just,
only get paid if they fly to Chicago. They only get paid
Well,
to
they-
Wyoming border.
No, they would get paid if they're gone on a work day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get paid if they're gone on a work day.
talking about.
We're
outside
talking
work
about on
hours.
weekends and evenings or
Ah,
something
okay.
like that.
Really, even not weekends, we're really talking outside of normal work hours. 'Cause
Thank
even
you.
on a weekend, they're paid from, say, 8 to 5. They would be paid for travel regardless whether they're driving. So we're only talking about those. That's what I'm trying to say. The window's not that large. Whatever you want to do is that we're talking about time outside of, say, 5 o'clock, where there's travel, where you're not the driver, or maybe even more if you're flying on an aircraft or something like that. So
What would be wrong with putting it in place and then revisiting it in a year? Just to see what the impacts are.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I know Robert rules, but habits are hard to break, but Robert
Robert's
rules are
rules. Go
suspended,
ahead.
but I think I would agree with where Commissioner Shanfield and Commissioner Wenley are coming because, and I do think it's a very situational, rare thing that we're talking about. We're talking about maybe if a conference starts on Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning and they've got to leave Sunday afternoon, that's unusual time. And I would think we should pay for our employees during those points of time. So I think we could craft something and then take a look at the impacts of it. But I do agree that if someone has to travel because of the implications of where they're going and the time situations that are outside of a normal time period, I think we should consider that and make sure it's paid whether you're driving or not, because you are gone.
I agree. I feel more with the sentiment of, if you're away and and it's because of work, then you should be getting compensated for it, even if it's 6 a.m. and you generally don't come to work till 7:30 or 8, something like that. Any other feelings, or is that kind of the direction is that the direction we are giving here?
I'm fine with it.
yeah, so let me just be clear. Are we talking about, and I think we can address this fairly easily, but since we know we're paying during normal work hours, we'd be
Yes.
talking about paying for the travel outside of normal work hours, because there's obviously other things outside of there, obviously, right? If you get to a destination, we're not paying
No,
24 hours a
just
day,
travel.
just travel. Okay,
Just travel.
yeah, that's easy.
Is that Lauren, are you there with travel?
Yeah, exactly. And I was unmuting as you said it. So
Well,
I
yeah,
agree. Just
And
travel.
then I think the other way, then we're also encouraging, let's not go together because, let's all drive instead. So we can all get paid,
Order for
if
vehicles,
we do
yeah.
it the other way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and actually in terms of, it's, simpler in terms of administration, right? So.
Yeah.
I think we can get something on that.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody has to take a turn driving.
Right, yeah.
No, they don't have to. I'm just joking.
We have some you don't want to ride with. So just-
We're good.
Yeah.
What's up next, Gary?
I think those were the major areas that we had discussed. I just wanted to make sure what you had, if there were, obviously not all the feedback went to me. So I wanted to make sure that we got, those were kind of the main ones that we had started, didn't quite finish, that I think were important. But if there's other issues that you wanted to address in that section, want to make sure we get those in, because I think we've kind of got it down where we can make a few tweaks here in some language and get this one wrapped up.
Any comments on that? I agree. I think we're squared away on it. We've
Mr.
probably
Chairman.
spent plenty of time on
Sounds
chapter
good.
3 here. So,
Chairman.
yes.
Hey, I think the reason we're at a workshop was because I requested it, if I remember correctly, rather than use meeting time, because we wasted an hour and a half on something that probably could have been 20 minutes on a meeting day, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's all right.
Life's a bummer. Hey, no, the other thing I think I requested in that meeting, two things, Gary, was
Yeah.
one, is this chapter 3 where we want to talk about volunteer, having a section on volunteering?
I do have a section on volunteering, but this would have to do more if there were some benefits for volunteering.
Okay, what I'm referencing is when I asked you that question at that meeting, and I'll stand corrected, but I said, hey, is there an interest for us to engage volunteers? And you said, we'll take all we can get.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And I guess that's where I was wondering if this was a section put that, because I think at a time where we're trying to be more efficient, we're going to have to really consider, what do I want to say, responsible volunteering.
Yeah.
Where, hey, is there something we could give somebody the keys to? Like I did at the school district for the high school. I gave it to the rec department so they could have volleyball in the gym.
Yeah.
So I see it more along that line as a volunteer. And there's volunteers out there, i.e. one of them, there's a group that would like to really provide volunteer time to get our shooting club open up here on where they shoot clay pigeons.
Yeah, at the trap club. Yeah.
Trap club. Thank you.
I met with Chris
Chris
Meets.
Well, it wasn't Chris Meeks.
Oh,
It was
okay,
my
maybe
neighbor down the
different.
street who's quite
Okay.
involved. I can't,
Yeah.
but I told him our first thing was to look at policy, but if you want someone to meet with you, I'll send him your way.
Absolutely. I mean,
All right.
Chris Meets from the city of Green River, not in that capacity, but he runs their youth group over here
Oh.
for that and asks the same question.
4-H.
And at that
4-H,
point in
yeah,
time
thank you.
is we only approved that 4-H group a pass on paying for
Yeah.
fees for this year, I believe. Am I correct? So that's got to come back before us before that continues.
Yeah, they were talking more about things like you're, I think, alluding to, things like
Okay.
cleaning up the range, helping stack targets.
Well, these are older adults that want to open it up and run things
Yeah,
where they could have it open more often, but
Yeah.
wouldn't have to pay somebody to be there. They'd actually run it as volunteers. So I'll send them your way.
so while we're on that topic, because I agree with you, one of the other areas this has come up with is, in the building, it's been, we noticed this during COVID, how difficult it was getting people to where they should be in the building. All of us in here have probably taken 400 questions about where do I pay how do I get to, where's the commission room? Where do I pay my tax? How do I get to the district courtroom? And so we've talked about, even if you remember during COVID, we had essentially that reception area staffed, which inadvertently did more than really the COVID stuff, was to get people headed to the right thing. Obviously the hospital does this with candy stripers and volunteer programs. So I think so we've talked about that a lot. It's hard to have a generic policy, but certainly in terms of encouraging it, some of the baseline rules that we have to cover them under workers' comp and some things like that. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we need something, and and even if department heads felt they had to bring it before a commission to
Yeah.
that type of thing. I hope not, but you never know. What are you shaking your head about?
Well, you probably have to have them sign some kind of release or
Oh,
something.
yeah, waiver and that type of thing.
I'm thinking that we're, as commissioners, moving ourselves to volunteers. So
Oh, look at who shows up when you start talking about facilities.
So just to finish that up, I'm not sure this is the right chapter,
Okay,
but I'm not sure exactly which one to tell you. So let me take a look at this and see where it fits in best. And it may be even one of the chapters we've already addressed, but I think that's an important thing to
that
address.
is important. And then I'll send the person your way and you guys can meet with Gene if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, then the other thing that I was trying to go to, and I think you helped me answer it, and it was a struggle for me to explain it the last time, is I'm talking about the regular workday. I believe that a regular workday should be the same for exempt employees as it is for non-exempt employees, along with the expectations for lunch. And if they're gone, their oversight is due to our leave policies. So I think somewheres along the line, we as a commission need to say, hey, do we believe our regular workday is consistent for all our employees, the same, whether they're exempt or non-exempt? And if we believe that, we need to say it.
Yeah.
And then who has oversight? Department heads have oversight and elected people on pay, approving pay.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be a oversight on directors as well.
Yeah.
That's just me. So the thing that comes into place there, commissioners, and Gary, is also the fact that lunch is the same and it's all consistent. Because if we believe that that's what we think all our employees should be doing, because we're here to service the public when we're open, not when we want to. I think we need to send a letter out and notify all staff that, hey, there's an expectation that this is how things are going to be done. Now, we're not talking elected officials, because that's a whole different ballgame. You don't like what I'm doing, there's an election coming up. So anyhow, with that, that's where I was trying to go. I apologize. It was so hard for me, but you helped me make it simpler just now. 3 minutes.
just now.
Now,
just
instead
time,
of an
just like
hour
that.
and 15 minutes at our last meeting. Thank you. So commissioners, I'm going to throw that one out there. What's your thoughts?
Oh, Doc, you must have been staying awake nights. May I speak?
I'm trying to clean it up, Mary.
I think you've been staying awake nights, but is there a policy about exempt employees? Aren't they on call pretty much full time? They don't get overtime.
No, that's true.
Can you talk about what the
Yeah, so
exempt employees get?
Let's
what are-
establish the ground rules and then you guys can
Right.
set the policy.
There you go.
So here are the couple areas. So obviously for a non-exempt employee, sometimes people call it an hourly employee. You're obligated to pay those employees hour for each hour they work, up to 40 hours and overtime after that at a time and a half. So there's no choice about that. Non-exempt employees, because they're paid per hour, and they clock in and they clock out. If they are gone for a half hour, they deduct a half hour of leave, and you're paying for time is the essential issue that you're paying for. You're paying for their time. An exempt employee, and there's really only 3 classifications of exempt employee. There's only a couple that really fit us, and most of those are going to be managerial employees like department heads, and some professional employees. Could be a nurse, could be an engineer, or so on and so forth. So it could be in that situation also. So the difference in with exempt staff is that you're prohibited from having hour for hour reductions of time. So one of the places where that runs in a little bit with our leave policies, as Commissioner Wendling suggested, is that you have whole day absences as opposed to hour for hour absences. Hour for hour reductions from time would jeopardize the exempt status. And so that's generally not permissible. With respect to some of the issues about reporting to work or certain times or hours of work or public service, all of those are certainly up to the board, but they kind of vary from position to position. So we have some exempt positions that are more direct customer service. You know, the one that I always use, I think we talked about a little bit the last meeting, was when, you know, the county planner had to sign off and approve applications or permits, for example. That function can't go on without that. And so that was a direct customer service thing. Others are certainly not tied so much to direct customer service, but more to getting job done. So for example, in the road and bridge side, they have different hours because of their work. They have, they're frequently out in the field. And so the nature of that work isn't customer service directly, it's more like job work. I think most people think of it most easily if you look like you're paying for work to be done, a job or a responsibility, as opposed to paying for time. One of the reasons that exempt positions are paid for the job as opposed to time is that if we, amongst us right here, were to do a certain job, you know, say to organize a department or build a bridge, we'd all organize that in a different way. And so it might take me 10 hours and it might take Commissioner Wendling 3 hours and you 6 hours. But so we're not telling you that, you know, about the time, we're telling you about the job. So in general, that's kind of the structure. And the rest of that has to do with what the expectations are. The other issue that's come here within, especially now within the county, is that we have operations that are all over the place. And so sometimes they're here, but many times they're not. They're other places. And so folks going to Joint Travel and Tourism Board meetings, folks going out into the field or to meet contractors or developers, or staff or other things. So, but beyond that, it's certainly the staff reports to the board. It's not uncommon to have some, you know, more guidance. Those are basically the legal operating parameters. Within that, the rest is up to you guys.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple thoughts. Yeah, you know, I've been for most of my career, I've been a salaried employee, and I've never been on the good end of salary. I have people that tell me that there is a good end of it. I was always on that 60, 70 hour end where you realize you made $9.25 an hour when you thought you were making significantly more. I think one of the difficult parts with a salaried employee is some of the expectations that could happen out of work. As we were having this conversation last time, I know often I'll talk to Gene when I was his liaison, and if it was a snow day, he would be out at the shop at 4 a.m. to make sure blades are on, things were moving, and we were in the right direction. Or another example, and I know I'm using Gene a lot here, but that I was his liaison, was last year at the flood at Clearview Acres. Gene led a crew of people to sandbag up above the area, which was up and above. So I'd kind of like to see a little bit of flexibility for some of our salaried employees with the concept that their work is getting done. And I think the bigger issue we may be talking about is something that I think you also alluded to, Commissioner Wendling, is we are the bosses or the supervisors is a better way to put it for the directors. And I wonder if we need to create some kind of policy or direction of how we provide that and how is the best way to provide that oversight. One quick thought I've had in preparing for this meeting, I know this discussion was coming up, was do we start looking at yearly evaluations in July or August for each of our directors, from the Board of County Commissioners to our employees? That's a way to have a discussion, a conversation, talk about what's working, what's not working. But I also think we need to find a ways to, you know, consistently hold employees accountable if things aren't being done and those kind of things. And I think then within those times and those parameters, it's those you would hope and I think we have a skilled group of department heads that they will put in 70 hours if they have to get their work done and also hit the field stuff or deal with the stuff. But if they have a lighter week and they know they have a meeting from 6 till 9 o'clock at night, if they can sneak out of the office at 2 or 3, as long as there's coverage in the office, I'm okay with that too, with the work is being done is kind of where I'm at with that. So I can see where you're coming, Commissioner Wendling, but I also think that maybe the bigger picture is here is how do we put in a system of supervision? Because when we start talking about it, we're now appointed contacts, we're not liaisons, but even when we were liaisons, I remember when I first started as a commissioner, it made very clear that, hey, you're not the supervisor. You are the point of contact, you're the vocal person. And then after 2 years of sitting on commission, before on someone's last meeting, we were all told, well, yeah, we are the supervisors. And I think the three of us looked at each other going, well, we never really thought that was our direct role. We thought it was different. And maybe we need to come up with some kind of plan that we are ensuring that stuff, because I do believe, Doc, we have that accountability. And so what's that system that we put in place for that? So just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Shanefield.
So I agree with what Roy is saying. I think that we have very high level department heads, and many of them have been in the workplace for a really long time. And a lot of them started out in an hourly position, and they've worked really hard to get where they're at. I feel like as long as there's no indication that there are performance issues, that we would be micromanaging if we set those expectations. Again, Commissioner Lloyd just said this, he brings Gene up a lot, but Gene was out on Sunday afternoon and evening on that train derailment, making sure that we could get our county roads open, making sure everything was getting taken care of. And that's the expectation that we have of those folks. But I think as a salaried employee, high level within our community, we also owe it to them to allow them to, if they have a light week, if they have a dentist appointment, they're going to be out of the office for an hour. They don't need to take PTO for those times. I do believe if they're going to be out for a full day or even a half a day, maybe that's something that we should talk about. Take 4 hours of PTO if you're going to be out for 4 hours or more that day. Take a full day of PTO, and actually, that's something that's flexible. But I do think that unless there's indication that there's something wrong or something not happening, and then it needs to be a performance discussion. And I think boards as a whole really struggle with disciplinary issues and supervision and performance reviews and things like that. And I agree 100% with Commissioner Lloyd that we should figure out a way to do performance reviews, because if one or two of us has a concern, we could have discussion in executive session, but it's really never being addressed with the employee. And so I think that that's something that we really need to talk about and take seriously and look at what that process might look like for us. And otherwise, I think that's everything.
Thank you. Other comments?
One last one.
Yes.
No matter what, our employees are paid by the taxpayers. They're paid by the people who pay taxes. And those people expect something a whole lot different than what private business does. And their expectations are, if those are my tax dollars, then this is how the employees' workday should be like. So I'm not disagreeing totally with what Commissioner Lloyd's saying, or Commissioner Tolman, or Commissioner Shanefield. But when you're being paid by tax dollars and that type of thing, you need to have things in place so that you can be responsible for those tax dollars. I think, we talk about public works, but I think if there's one of them that has a basis covered better than any other, it's public works, because there's this commission at any point in time could stand up and say, we know why those maintainers are working 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. That's to be expected. But keep in mind, we pay our department heads, and we'll be making a decision of what we want to pay our elected officials, some very, very good taxpayer dollars. It's not chump change. We took a lot of heat when we stepped out there to improve salaries for everybody. Didn't matter whether it was department heads or whether it was employees and that type of thing. But we did it for all the right reason, and that was to make sure people are paid so that they're here to provide services for them. I agree, Gary, depending on what the job looks like, it's service. But you know what? To the general taxpayer, they don't care. They see me out there running on the street, and if they know that I'm supposed to be here full time, you 5 commissioners are going to know damn well, you know, and I better have an answer that, hey, I know they're out on leave as a supervisor. So I just think it's worthy the discussion. It's worthy of philosophical conversation, right, wrong, or indifferent. My true belief is, the bottom line is, as taxpayers, they expect employees who are paid with their dollars to be available the regular workday.
Mr. Chair,
So that's all I've said.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
well, then I think we should pay our department heads by the hour and go ahead and have 3 shifts of them working so they can cover all possible hours and weekends. That's the other alternative, Commissioner Wendling.
Well,
If you
no,
don't want to pay a salary and have somebody on call to go deal with all these emergencies whenever and wherever they happen, then you should just pay them all hourly and have 3 shifts of them so you cover it 24 hours a day, like road and bridge and facilities. How else could you do it?
you pay your regular work hours, and then your exempt employees are receiving a salary. They have an option, knowing the fact that they're not an hourly employee and they may have to work more than they should. That's the way it always is in salaries. It's the way it always is for the most part in government. Roy already explained about how that goes. And I don't know of any other place. I know in the education arena, it's that way. There's no extra time for the leadership, for the people that are out there, but they get paid tremendously more money than the people that work the regular hourly day. So I'm just saying it's worth a discussion. It's worth where are we at? What are we doing as we move forward? And I've heard it for a lot of years. And the only way I said I would address it is if we ever get into doing policies. That's the right place to do it and have those conversations. And
Here we are.
here we are. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. I'll cap it off. I agree with some flexibility. We ask a lot of our leaders within the county, and so flexibility to be at a dentist for an hour without PTO, or knowing that they were out on Sunday doing something else. That's the way that I would agree with. That's the way I feel like.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I agree with you. I think if we're dealing with strictly in-house professional type of jobs that you could do that 8 to 5, like you're a school principal or whatever, maybe you are there 8 to 5, but then you also work evenings too. So we have different kinds of jobs in the county. I mean, road and bridge is a whole lot different than assessor, and I don't think we should be lumping the electives anywhere near the department head. So I'll take that off the table. But
I agree.
you have different kinds of jobs. If they're in the courthouse 8 to 5, and hour lunch makes sense. But if they have a job that takes them all over the county, it's ridiculous. So I think we have a good system. We should stick with it unless we want to pay them hourly and have 3 shifts to cover every 24 hours. So to me, I think it's a moot point to go any further with this discussion. I think we're dealing with it.
Good. So we like the direction then?
I do.
I mean, I think is worthy discussion, and what I'm hearing is that, yeah, we like flexibility for our exempt employees. But,
Mr. Chairman, one last comment.
okay.
But within all that,
Last one.
I do agree that I'm a proponent of what we're saying and what I said, but we also have an obligation to ensure our employees are getting their work done. And
Sure.
if someone is, and if Gene's got to run out to the field, he has to have some way in the office to link out to him, which he typically, like if I go in the office and Gene's not there, they'll say, hey, he's on his cell phone. He's out here. There still has to be a link to those individuals. But I think at the end of the day, the key is, what are our systems to ensure that supervision and that accounting of the tax dollars is there? Is that something that could be missing?
I would, I don't know if disagree is the right word, but take issue maybe with that, because I don't feel as though if you're out of the office, you need to be available. I think that if you're out of the office, you need to have a good staff and delegation, somebody who's running the office. If you're not there, I mean, what happens when you're on vacation for 2 weeks? You know, I mean, you're not available by cell phone or whatever, but somebody else is in charge and running the show. So I think that that's probably, at least in my mind, that's not necessarily the case. So I don't think that you have to be, you want to make sure that there's good delegation, a good staff that's able to run things when you're not there. So
one of the things, and we're happy to, that I think creates some challenges in right now throughout the county is that you don't have a lot. We're a very flat organization. We've made specific strides to be flat. There are some other organizations around that are much more vertical. But what that means is you don't have a lot of redundant subordinate layers of management. So it's not like you have 2 or 3 exempt staff. The sheriff's department has a little bit more because of their size. But aside from that, generally you're talking about kind of one person in this area or one person in that area. And so even, you know, I think if you ask most people, even the vacations are, I don't know a single exempt person in the county that doesn't leave vacation, that doesn't answer emails or take text messages or approve time or do other things, which technology is allowed to do, but also just to try to be responsive, because sometimes there are things that are hard to have other people do or to set up. But yeah, I mean, just whatever direction we want to go, we'd be happy to work on that that area.
do you have direction from us, Gary, with all these comments?
We get good discussion, I guess.
I know, right?
Yeah,
It is an excellent discussion.
That's our job, is to create discussion.
Well, we've discussed plenty. Direction, that's what we need right here. Okay, Gary, so tell us where are we at right now? What is the policy right now? And then the recommendation. I mean,
relative to exempt staff.
yes.
So exempt, so that's kind of a lot of fronts to that. So obviously, as I pointed out, is pay for the work. The relative to time off is their whole day absences, to go to the dentist that are not a partial day absence. That absence, some state law is prohibitive for partial day absences, hour for hour reduction absences. So I don't think that's the issue. I think that you know, beyond that is driven by the demands of the particular workplace.
Sure.
I think that's kind of the main thing. And so so we have certain functions that are very office related. Marty purchasing, for example, mine are more office related, and we have some that are a lot more field related, or you know, less tied to a specific location. So there are some differences between those. I think my recommendation is I would refrain from the time issue, from the hour talk about hour for hour. But certainly if you want to, you know, connect it to work days or whatever, that's certainly fine. That's not an abridgment of those issues if the board wishes to do that. Like I said, I think there's places where it makes sense and others where it doesn't seem to make sense. But we can, you know, could be specific about that also. I mean, we do that already. In terms of the demands of certain jobs, whether they're exempt or non-exempt, they're different by their nature. So we expect different skill sets, different things. So if you had one that you said, hey, you need to be at the courthouse 8 to 5, and another you say you need to be available for that, that'd be fine, because you don't have public service in one capacity and the other direct public service. Obviously, they're all public service, but so you know, that would be fine. I think what happens in this discussion is we need to break it down into some pieces, because we're commingling a bunch of things. We're talking about hours of work. We're talking about performance. We're talking about accountability. We're talking about leave. And so I think if we talk about those sort of individually, it's easier to address anything that we need to going forth. I think in the policy that you have, there's a fairly robust discussion about, the parameters. But as Commissioner Wendling alluded to, there's sort of a philosophical component that is a leadership component. And if that's something that we want to have included, that's certainly fine as well. I mean, I'm not sure that that I've got enough unanimity from everybody to do that on my own, but certainly if we could get that narrowed down, I'm certainly open to that. I'd be happy to include that in here.
Okay, well, I'm inclined to, I don't know that we've had a problem per se necessarily, and so I'm not really inclined to change it.
I agree.
Is there any other?
I agree. And Mr. Chairman, I will take the lead if everybody is so inclined to looking at some different policies and procedures to bring back for a few options on annual reviews for our exempt employees and department heads specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll make this quick. And Lauren, maybe even branching it out to concepts of overview of performance and handling of performance concerns. I think that needs to go in that branch because that's part of the component too. And thank you for volunteering to take the lead on that.
I will chime in and with my reading and the couple of years I've been in whatever leadership positions I have been in companies and my own companies, not a big fan of annual reviews. I feel in everything, in lots that I read, studies and things, the daily, weekly interactions, checking in with people, those things seem to go much better than doing an annual review. I don't do them anymore, haven't for a number of years, but I'm inclined to do what the board likes. So that would be my opinion.
Well, then let's go out and hire a CEO.
Right?
Commissioner Whitling.
That's
I
a whole
was
different
about to say
discussion,
that.
isn't it?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I had planned on tying in maybe some possible other options rather than it just being annual or 6 month. I think obviously it's really difficult, like I said earlier, for a board of directors. There's 5 of us. It's hard to get everybody together. It's hard to have those conversations. So we have to make it a point to schedule them and to really review them. But I'll try to give a few different options for the board so that, and we may choose to not move forward with any of it, but I'll try to get a few other options besides just annual so that we can make it more of a consistent process if possible.
Thank you. I'm open to options. So let's do that. Is that enough direction, Gary?
Sure. Yeah. I think the only question that we have right now is relative to the form. I think we've got some changes that we've identified and we can get those put in there. Are we still going to do the review or the approval part chapter by chapter? Or are we going to get these things in and then move to the next chapter and then adopt the bulk? I was a little bit ambiguous about how we want to move ahead with that.
Oh, I'm good with doing it as a whole.
Did we approve 1 and 2 separately?
We did,
Yeah. But there also, we had some of those specific areas that needed to be addressed.
Oh,
in
that's
there,
right.
but-
That's
So,
right. Okay.
but
Discipline and the grievance policy chapters. It was like 5 and 8 or something. But
Yeah,
it was
but
those 2 chapters.
That was 5 and 8, but chapters 1 and 2. Which
We've
were-
done 1 and 2, and then I don't know if it's 5 and 8, but like that, Doc, it was 2 different chapters.
it makes no difference to me. The only concern I have, like when you brought the volunteer stuff, is we need to go back and revisit one of those other sections where that makes sense. And so I'm okay either way. I mean, I guess we need.
You're
to
always okay either way.
Yeah.
You're just an easygoing guy. So, no, I would recommend that we review this and then at the end we approve our policies
Okay.
and procedures as presented because of this very thing.
Okay.
They tie into each other. We find other places like, oh, that's an idea. And any objection to that? Okay, let's do that then. We'll carry on with reviewing policies and procedures. I'm making sure I check my
Chairman,
agenda here.
Yes. Could I ask a question?
You may.
How many chapters are in this thing? How many more do we have?
4,321. No, there's,
How many more do we have to go? Which
yeah.
century are we going to get to review?
No,
it?
I mean, I think this one in particular had a lot. We talked about that. Most are not. So the next one's shorter, the next couple are shorter. So I think those we can bulk together and do 4, 5, and 6 or 4.
How many are there total? Do you know about?
12, 10,
Oh,
11.
okay.
Yeah. So, but I think, like I said, this is by far one of the, because they are so interrelated with leave issues. So I think some of the others are more straightforward.
Excellent. Thank you. Items then for our next meeting, next budget workshop. Anybody else you would like to hear from?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know Bonnie's out now, but she was going to highlight if there were any huge discrepancies in any of those budgets that came in.
I think that'll be coming our way in.
She's going to get us a list, I think.
Yeah, and I would imagine it'll be up on the end drive for us to look at.
They are.
The differences are already.
I don't know, my computer is not cooperating, so.
And there is your special spreadsheet looked like it was on there too, Mary.
Yeah, I saw part of it, but I can't make it do anything.
The summarized comparative spreadsheet. Yes. Look at that thing. Woo.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just had one question. With respect to, I know that we submitted the budgets with the cost of living increase in those, and you should have those into the current model of the budget. Has the board discussed an implementation timeframe? Because there's a little bit to do to make sure those get done. And so historically, we've done that in June for this, which would be the start of the July, the payroll's done in July. So I didn't know if you discussed that. If that's something that we discussed as far as the implementation, I'd want to make sure we communicate that to folks so that we get all of those changes and stuff ready for that point in
Sure.
time.
And I think that with the budget year, that was our expectation.
July
was
1, right?
To move forward.
July 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was mine. I don't know I didn't hear what anybody else had to say.
Yeah.
One issue to put on the next budget meeting we have for budget would be something we spoke about last time with the events complex, specifically if we want to earmark some of the money we get from the historic horse racing machines to them for upkeep for that was something we talked about the last time at the last meeting. Should we take a portion of that and put that into their budget? Because we get a large chunk. It's over 700 grand a year, if I'm not mistaken. And that's only created because of the horse racing. And if we can keep enticing that horse racing company to stay here by giving them a little bit of that. And by the way, they actually did it. I was at the events complex meeting last week, and they actually were reported that the grandstands structurally were in pretty good condition. So, but there's still upkeep for jockeys' bathrooms, aesthetics of it, and those kind of things. So,
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes, Doc, Mr. Wedling.
Candy will be here at the next commissioners meeting in May to not only present, but talk about that, and we can decide at that time. It can be, how much we want to get earmarked towards that, and she'll have some solid figures for us, as well as probably a priority list for what they're looking at. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr.
Other
Chairman.
items? Yes.
Maybe we should send out to the outside entities. I know you kind of made a schedule of, they should report to us quarterly, annually, biannually. We should send that. Would you have Sally do it, or who would we send that list so they can know and put a date down for them to actually do their quarterly report? So it's not just up to them, that Sally can kind of start phasing them in throughout the whole year.
Okay. We'll have something put together for that next meeting. Other items? Other ideas? Okay. Our next meeting, would we like it 2 weeks? The clock's ticking, so would we like it the 16th of the Monday before our meeting, 16th of May?
That would work for me, Mr. Chairman.
Fine with me.
4 o'clock, Monday, the 16th then. Yes, we do.
Bonnie gave us a schedule, but I don't have. it.
Yeah. I mean, there's statutes that we have to follow, and I think it's our first meeting in June that we approve it. Does anybody think differently? Doc's looking.
I
right
think
now.
you're correct.
Yeah, I think it's our first meeting in June. I don't.
Bonnie gave us a
necessarily-
list. I'll give you a copy of that.
Okay, anything else? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would so move.
Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that. Well, you're not supposed to have to do that by Robert's rules, but if you want a second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Well, we gotta go get her stuff.